A massive stone door stands sealed against the world. Beyond it, history itself is kept under lock and key. This video unlocks 20 of the most secretive places on Earth, forbidden archaeological sites closed to the public. You will gain access to a hidden world where the rules of discovery are rewritten by security, sanctity, and survival. Why would a government seal a tomb for 2,000 years? What ancient art is too fragile for human eyes? We are embarking on a global investigation into the shadows, where the deepest truths about our past are deliberately kept from view. By the end, your understanding of history will be permanently altered. What do you think is the most compelling reason to keep a piece of the past forbidden? These sealed doors are not just about keeping people out. They represent a profound conflict over the very soul of history. The idea of forbidden archaeology is not a simple matter of trespassing signs or fragile ruins. It is a complex web where global politics, sacred tradition, and the ethics of discovery collide. Think of a Cold War bunker built for one kind of secrecy, now repurposed to safeguard priceless antiquities from modern conflicts. Consider remote indigenous lands where access is restricted not to hide history, but to protect living spiritual sanctuaries that are still in use today. The reasons a site is placed off limits are as diverse as human culture itself. To truly grasp the weight of these places, we need to understand the invisible framework that surrounds them. This brings us to pivotal agreements like the 1954 Hague Convention, an international treaty created to protect cultural property during armed conflict. This legal foundation means that in a war zone, a historic mosque or an ancient library isn't just a building, it is a protected entity, often requiring its own form of isolation for survival. Beyond warfare, there are fierce, ongoing debates about cultural patrimony. Who truly owns the past is a magnificent artifact discovered by a foreign archaeologist a century ago, a piece of global heritage to be studied in a world-famous museum? Or is it an irreplaceable piece of a nation's identity that must be returned? These questions turn quiet archaeological sites into loud battlegrounds of diplomacy and identity. When we look through this lens, our list transforms. It is no longer just a catalogue of locations you cannot visit. It becomes a meaningful narrative about power, preservation, and perspective. It asks us who gets to write the story of humanity and who has the right to decide when a chapter is closed for good. This foundational tension sets the stage for every single site we are about to explore. This complex framework of secrecy can be broken down into distinct categories, each with its own unique logic. Understanding these classifications is like learning the language of the forbidden. The first and perhaps most straightforward category involves national security. These are places where the past and present collide with the interests of the state. Think of a decommissioned Cold War missile silo, now repurposed to house sensitive communications equipment, or a remote island where radar installations share space with unexcavated ancient settlements. Here, archaeology becomes secondary to contemporary defense, and the barrier is one of steel and clear orders. A very different kind of boundary exists at sites closed for cultural and religious sanctity. These are not secrets to be uncovered, but sacred spaces to be honored. Access is not a right, but a profound privilege reserved for specific elders, priests, or community members. To force entry is not just trespassing, it is a spiritual violation. Then there are the places sealed for pure physical peril. These are the ticking clocks of the archaeological world. An unstable tomb sealing on the verge of collapse, a network of caves filled with toxic bat guano, or a structure slowly being reclaimed by a volatile environment. Here, the restriction is an act of preservation, protecting both the site and any would-be explorer from mutual destruction. Finally, we have the active research zones, the living laboratories of history. In these cordoned-off digs, every layer of soil is a page in a manuscript, and public foot traffic could erase the text forever. Premature exposure could lead to misinterpretation, looting, or the irreversible loss of context that turns an object into a story. This simple taxonomy transforms a random list of off-limit locations into a meaningful map. It allows us to ask not just where, but why. And with that map in hand, our journey to the first of these 20 forbidden sites can truly begin. Our first stop takes us into the heart of a sovereign city-state, to a building that holds not bones or pottery, but paper and ink. The Vatican's secret archives represent a different kind of archaeology altogether, one where the artifacts are words and the excavation is done with careful reading. This is not a dusty tomb sealed by a collapsing ceiling, but a meticulously organized fortress of information, protecting a continuous historical record that stretches back more than 1,200 years. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Imagine miles of climate-controlled shelves, a labyrinth of secure corridors containing an estimated 53 miles of documents. Within this vast repository rests the written heartbeat of the Catholic Church and, by extension, a significant portion of Western history. We are talking about papal correspondence that shaped empires, trial records from pivotal moments, and foundational texts like the original petition from English nobles to Pope Clement VII in the year 1530 concerning the marriage of King Henry VIII. This single document, among millions, represents a fork in the road of history, its consequences still felt today. The restriction here is not about physical danger or national security in the conventional sense. It is about control, context, and the immense responsibility of stewardship. Access to the archives is a privilege granted only to vetted academic researchers, and the process is famously rigorous. A scholar cannot simply walk in and browse. They must apply for permission to view specific, pre-identified documents, justifying their research need. Even with approval, a substantial portion of the collection remains entirely off-limits, particularly most records dated after 1939. This creates an intriguing temporal border, a wall in time that separates the studied past from the protected recent past. The aura of mystery surrounding the archives, therefore, is not one of supernatural legend, but of profound historical potential. It is the mystery of the narrative not yet told, the connection not yet made, the letter not yet read. What undiscovered correspondence might reshape our understanding of a historical figure? What administrative record could shed new light on a long-settled debate? The archives are a living testament to the idea that history is never fully written, only continuously edited as new pages from the past are finally turned. This controlled access forces us to confront a difficult question. In an age that champions total information transparency, does there remain a valid argument for keeping certain chapters of our shared story, especially those involving living individuals or very recent events, temporarily closed? The Vatican's answer, embodied in those 53 miles of shelving, is a resounding and deliberate yes. It is a reminder that some doors are locked not to hide truth, but to protect the fragile process of understanding it. From the quiet halls of preserved documents, we journey to a landscape defined by deafening silence and enforced secrecy. The Nevada desert holds a name that echoes through modern mythology, Area 51. This highly classified Air Force facility within the vast Nevada Test and Training Range is the global epicenter for speculation about unidentified flying objects and advanced aerospace technology. The perimeter is a stark monument to the present, guarded by motion sensors, patrols, and warnings that promise severe consequences for trespassers. Yet beneath the layer of contemporary conspiracy lies a much older, quieter truth. This immense, restricted tract of desert is also an archaeological sanctuary. Scattered across its sun-baked valleys and hidden in its mountain ranges are ancient Native American petroglyphs, intricate rock carvings that tell stories of sky, earth, and spirit from millennia ago. Prehistoric trails worn into the earth by countless footsteps crisscross the land, and the potential for undiscovered settlements or ceremonial sites remains high. The extreme secrecy enacted for national security has created an unintended yet powerful form of preservation. The very barriers that keep out spies and the curious also keep out looters, vandals, and the unchecked foot traffic that erodes fragile desert varnish and priceless art. The irony is both profound and thought-provoking. A place synonymous with the most speculative visions of the future has become, by complete accident, one of the most effective guardians of America's deep past. This presents a unique ethical puzzle. The cultural heritage of indigenous nations is preserved not by dedicated heritage laws in this instance, but by the blanket security protocol of a military installation. The descendants of those ancient artists cannot access these sacred sites to perform ceremonies or connect with their history, as the land is locked down for reasons wholly unrelated to their legacy. It is preservation through exclusion, a cultural resource protected under a veil of state secrecy. This duality forces us to expand our definition of a forbidden site. Area 51 is not forbidden because of what is buried in its ancient soil, but because of what flies in its modern skies. Yet the consequence is the same, a landscape where history is simultaneously shielded and silenced, leaving us to wonder what stories those silent stone canvases might tell if only the desert there could speak. A golden lancehead viper carries enough venom to cause a swift and serious medical crisis. Now envision an entire island where these snakes are not a rare danger, but the dominant population. This is the stark reality of Ilha do Queimada Grande, known universally as Snake Island, a sliver of land off the coast of Brazil under permanent and absolute quarantine. The Brazilian Navy enforces a total ban on any landing, and the reason is brutally ecological, not archaeological. Researchers estimate a population of several thousand golden lanceheads, a species found nowhere else on Earth, with a density that could reach an almost inconceivable 5 snakes per square meter. Every root, every branch, every patch of open ground is potentially occupied. This transforms the island from a piece of land into a living, breathing fortress of evolutionary isolation. The restriction here exists for pure survival, a barrier against one of the most potent venoms known to science. Yet, this blanket prohibition born of biological terror has a fascinating secondary effect. It has rendered the island one of the most perfectly preserved and most utterly inaccessible potential archaeological sites in the world. Legends swirl around its past, tales of pirates using the island as a cache for treasure, or of a failed lighthouse operation where the keepers met a grim fate. Did early explorers or outlaws ever attempt to use this place? Are there remnants of shelters or even crude graves being slowly reclaimed by the forest and its serpentine guardians? We simply do not know, and under current conditions we likely never will. Any attempt at systematic archaeological survey is impossible. The snakes are not guarding a secret, but their own precarious existence in a tiny, isolated ecosystem. Their extreme toxicity is believed by some scientists to have evolved because their prey, migratory birds, could simply fly away if not incapacitated immediately. This creates a perfect tragic lock. The very trait that makes the island forbidden is the same trait that ensures its historical secrets, if any exist, will remain forever entangled with the roots and the rocks. Snake Island stands as a powerful reminder that not all barriers are built by human hands. Some are woven into the very fabric of a place by nature itself, enforcing a silence so complete that it freezes time, leaving every mystery, real or imagined, to rest undisturbed beneath a watchful, golden gaze. A masterpiece can be destroyed by an admiring breath. In the quiet French countryside, the Lascaux cave presents perhaps the most poignant example of a site closed not for mystery or danger, but for love. When it was discovered in 1940, the world was stunned. Here was not a handful of simple sketches, but a breathtaking underground cathedral adorned with hundreds of vivid animal paintings. A swirling gallery of aurochs, horses, and stags created approximately 17,000 years ago. The artists used the natural contours of the rock to give their subjects volume and life, a sophisticated technique that felt miraculously preserved in the cave's constant, cool darkness. The public rushed to see this window into the dawn of human creativity, and for over 2 decades, visitors walked the same chambers as those ancient painters. That was the problem. Each person brought in microscopic spores, changes in humidity, and exhaled carbon dioxide. The delicate chemical balance that had preserved the pigments for millennia was shattered. Algae began to spread, followed by destructive white calcite deposits and black fungus stains, a creeping blight threatening to erase the art forever. The very act of witnessing was causing the destruction. In 1963, faced with an impossible choice, French authorities made a definitive decision. They sealed the original cave to everyone except a tiny team of monitoring scientists. The doors were locked to save the art from its greatest admirers. This closure represents a profound shift in our relationship with the past. It acknowledges that some heritage is too fragile for direct contact, that preservation can require absolute separation. Today, the experience of Lascaux is not lost but transformed. Through an astonishing feat of technology and artistry, Lascaux 4, a complete and painstaking replica, allows visitors to feel the scale and wonder of the cave. Every bump on the wall, every brushstroke has been recreated with millimeter precision. It is a copy, yes, but one created out of deep necessity and respect. Meanwhile, the true cave rests in its enforced, sacred darkness. The original bison gallop in silence, the horses run unseen, their stories kept safe in a timeless vault. This solution forces us to ask a difficult question about authenticity. Is the value of these paintings in the ancient pigment itself, or in the story it tells and the awe it inspires? By protecting the physical artifact at all costs, even from our own eyes, we make a statement that the object's survival transcends any single generation's desire to see it. The cave becomes a gift held in trust for a future we may never know, a 17,000-year-old legacy preserved not by display, but by deliberate and respectful exile. The silent guardians of Lascaux were saved from our admiration, but in China, an entire army stands in vigilant wait for an excavation that may never come. The mausoleum of the first Qin emperor is a city of the dead built for a single purpose, to protect one man for eternity. While the ranks of the Terracotta army have been partially revealed to the world, the heart of the complex, the emperor's burial chamber itself, remains a sealed and forbidden mystery. Ancient historians wrote of palaces and ceilings inlaid with pearls to mimic the night sky, of landscapes crafted from bronze, and of rivers and oceans simulated with flowing, toxic mercury. For centuries, these accounts were read as legend, the fantastical boasts of a ruler who united China and sought to conquer death itself. Then science intervened. Soil samples taken from the enormous burial mound have repeatedly shown mercury concentrations hundreds of times higher than normal. The legend of the mercury rivers appears to be a chilling geological truth. This confirmation transforms the tomb from an archaeological site into a potentially lethal puzzle box. The descriptions of mechanical crossbows set to fire at intruders add a layer of ancient engineering to the pervasive chemical threat. Faced with this confluence of legend and hazard, Chinese authorities have made a monumental decision to leave it all untouched. Their stance is not born of fear alone, but of a profound and patient philosophy. The disastrous chemical changes that afflicted the Lascaux paintings are a cautionary tale heard around the world. The technology to safely excavate, stabilize, and preserve whatever organic materials, silks, lacquers, or even the emperor's remains that might lie within the central chamber simply does not exist yet. To open it now would be an act of destruction, not discovery, so the decision stands, a conscious, deliberate postponement. The Terracotta army will continue their eternal watch above ground, while below, the greatest prize in Chinese archaeology rests under a mound of earth, history, and conscious restraint. This creates a fascinating tension between our desire to know and our duty to preserve. It asks whether the highest form of respect for the past is sometimes to simply leave it be, to accept that some doors, especially those protecting a toxic, 2,000-year-old dream of immortality, are meant to stay closed until we are wise enough not to ruin what we find. The decision to seal a tomb can be an act of reverence, but to seal a mountain is an act of hope. Carved into the permafrost of a remote Arctic island, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault is a different kind of forbidden archaeology. Its treasures are not carved from stone or forged from bronze, but are tiny, sleeping capsules of life itself. This is not a site preserving what was, but a fortress meticulously designed to protect what must be. The iconic concrete entrance, jutting from the snowy mountainside, is a portal to a deep-freeze archive containing over 1 million seed samples from nearly every country on Earth. It is a biological backup drive for our planet's agricultural heritage. While the entrance is a powerful symbol, the interior vault chambers are strictly off-limits. Public access is prohibited not for mystery but for meticulous science. The seeds require a constant, ultra-low temperature, and even the warmth of a human body in the chambers could compromise the delicate environmental controls. Security is paramount, not to guard against theft of seeds, but to protect the integrity of the entire system from any disruption. This creates a profound irony. The most accessible part of the vault is its function, a global insurance policy, while its physical heart is one of the most inaccessible places on the list. It operates on a timescale that feels almost geological. The seeds inside are meant to sleep for decades, centuries, or even longer, waiting for a future generation that might need to awaken them to restart agriculture after a regional or global crisis. In this way, the vault is an archaeological site in reverse. Instead of digging down to uncover what our ancestors left behind, we have deliberately buried a gift for our descendants. It asks us to expand our definition of what is worth preserving. Beyond temples and tombs, the most crucial legacy we can leave might be the humble, resilient seed of a drought-resistant wheat or a blight-tolerant potato. This silent, frozen library reframes the concept of a forbidden site. It is not closed to hide a secret, but to safeguard a promise that no matter what happens, the foundation of our future, the very building blocks of our food, will remain secure, waiting in the eternal ice for a spring that may never need to come. Faith can build walls as enduring as stone. In the heart of Saudi Arabia, the city of Mecca presents a restriction unlike any other, one defined not by government decree or physical peril, but by profound, unwavering belief. For over 1,400 years, access to this holiest of cities has been reserved exclusively for members of the Muslim faith. At its center lies the Masjid al-Haram, the Grand Mosque, and within that, the Kaaba, the cubic structure draped in black silk that Muslims around the world face in prayer 5 times a day. Islamic tradition holds that the Kaaba was originally built by the prophets Abraham and Ishmael as a house of monotheistic worship, a spiritual anchor point for humanity. This is not merely an old building, it is the living, beating heart of a global faith practiced by nearly 2 billion people. The restriction here is absolute and spiritual, a boundary respected by international custom and Saudi law. For the non-Muslim world, including historians and archaeologists, this creates a unique and defining limitation. The archaeological gaze, that scientific impulse to measure, excavate, and analyze, is fundamentally redirected. Mecca is a city built upon itself, a place with deep pre-Islamic history where ancient trade routes converged and where various Arabian religious traditions were practiced. Layers of that past lie physically beneath the modern expanse of marble and minarets. Yet, direct physical investigation by outsiders is impossible. How then do we understand the archaeology of a place we cannot enter? The work falls to a combination of sources: Muslim scholars and archaeologists who have the access, conduct research, though their work often focuses on the immense expansion and engineering of the holy site itself to accommodate millions of pilgrims. For the wider academic community, understanding relies on historical texts from early Muslim historians, rare photographs and maps from past centuries, and the study of comparable sites from the same region and era. It is archaeology by proxy, a puzzle assembled from the edges inward. This limitation forces a crucial conversation about perspective. It asks who has the right to tell the story of a sacred space. The restriction asserts that the primary narrative of Mecca belongs not to the neutral observer, but to the believer for whom every stone is imbued with spiritual meaning. The archaeological story becomes secondary to the living tradition, a supporting layer to a faith that has been continuously renewed by each generation of pilgrims for over a millennium. In this way, Mecca stands as a powerful testament to the idea that some truths are not uncovered by trowels and brushes, but are carried in the hearts of those who walk in reverence. The forbidden nature of the site for most of the world does not obscure its history, but rather frames it within a context far larger than science alone can provide. The quiet, patient work of preservation often unfolds behind locked doors. While millions have gazed upon the silent ranks of the excavated terracotta army, they are seeing only a fraction of the story. The vast archaeological park in China is not a static museum, but a living, breathing dig site of staggering scale. Beyond the tourist walkways and viewing platforms lie entire buried legions still locked in the earth, their excavation zones strictly closed to the public. These are not sealed tombs of legend, but active, dusty trenches where the past is being meted out one careful scrape at a time. Here, teams of archaeologists work with the patience of surgeons, not to reveal a grand spectacle all at once, but to preserve the fragile reality of history. Each figure they encounter is a complex puzzle. The vibrant paint that once made these warriors look alive is incredibly delicate, often flaking off within minutes of exposure to the dry air. So the work is slow, methodical, and climate-controlled. They are not just digging up statues, they are performing a continuous rescue operation on a 2,200-year-old art installation. The discoveries in these restricted pits constantly reshape our understanding. It was here, in a sealed area away from public view, that the breathtaking bronze chariots were found, intricate masterpieces of ancient metallurgy with working parts and elaborate canopies. Each new pit reveals a different branch of the emperor's subterranean military, from archers and infantrymen to officers and acrobats, each positioned according to a meticulous ancient battle formation. The restriction here is a practical necessity. A single visitor's footprint could collapse an unseen hollow in the soil, destroying a fragile artifact before it's ever recorded. The dust we carry on our clothes, the humidity from our breath, these are agents of slow decay. By closing these active zones, authorities are not hiding history. They are protecting the very conditions that allow history to be read accurately. This creates a fascinating duality for the visitor. you can stand in awe of the assembled army, a sight of overwhelming power, while knowing that just a few hundred feet away, in a quiet, off-limits trench, another general is slowly emerging from the darkness. It is a powerful reminder that at the world's most famous sites, the most thrilling chapters are often being written not in the guidebooks, but in the silent, patient language of trowels and brushes, where every day is a chance to meet another soldier from the past. A single government notice can transform a place of legend into a legal reality. The Bhangarh fort in Rajasthan stands under an official decree from the Archaeological Survey of India, a simple order that carries the weight of centuries. No person is permitted within the fort's boundaries between sunset and sunrise. This is not a suggestion or a local superstition, it is a law. The reason cited on the sign is straightforward: for public safety. Yet, everyone who reads it knows they are entering a story far older than any regulation. Built in the 17th century, the sprawling complex of palaces, temples, and bazaars now lies in magnificent ruin, abandoned to the elements and to a powerful legend. The tale speaks of a talented magician who fell in love with the beautiful princess of Bhangarh. When she rejected his advances, he cast a curse that doomed the entire city to destruction and ensured no roof would ever again stand tall over its courtyards. Soon after, the fort was sacked in a battle, and the town was never reoccupied, seemingly fulfilling the prophecy. This narrative of a wronged mystic and a fallen kingdom is woven deeply into the local consciousness, creating an aura that the government notice merely formalizes. The practical enforcement of the ban makes perfect sense. As night falls, the crumbling ramparts and deep, open step wells become treacherous terrain. Wildlife, including leopards and snakes, reclaims the space from daytime tourists. The restriction protects people from very real physical harm. But the law also does something else. It inadvertently protects the myth. By legally mandating the fort's emptiness each night, the authorities give official silence to the hours when the stories feel most alive. This creates a perfect partnership between preservation and folklore. The archaeological site is safeguarded from vandalism and accidental damage under cover of darkness, while the legend is allowed to breathe, undisturbed by skeptical daytime crowds. Visitors who walk its paths by daylight experience a fascinating duality. They see the clear, rational efforts of preservation at work, with barriers around unstable sections, yet they feel the persistent chill of the tale. This site asks us a compelling question: where does history end and story begin? At Bhangarh, they are not separate. The curse is part of the fort's historical identity, a narrative that explains its abandonment and fuels its enduring fascination. The government ban, by respecting both the physical danger and the power of the story, acknowledges that some places hold two kinds of truth. One is written in stone and mortar, the other is carried on the night wind, and both are worthy of protection. The most profound secrets are sometimes those passed hand to hand, not buried in the earth. In Japan, the Ai's Grand Shrine stands as a testament to a belief that purity is not found in permanence, but in perpetual renewal. As the most sacred site in Shinto, the shrine complex is completely rebuilt from the ground up every 20 years in a ceremony known as Shikinen Sengu, a tradition unbroken for over 13 centuries. This practice is a living archaeology, where the act of reconstruction is itself the sacred artifact. At the heart of this cycle lies a strictly forbidden space known as the Room of the Documents. Within the innermost, heavily guarded precincts, this chamber is believed to safeguard the divine blueprints, the ancient architectural scrolls, and the sacred artifacts used to guide each generation's rebuild. Access is a privilege reserved solely for the highest-ranking priests, and no photographic record of its contents has ever been permitted to leave. The restriction here serves a purpose far beyond security or preservation. It protects the continuity of a living breath. If the documents were public, the exacting, ritual knowledge could become static, a museum piece to be studied rather than a practiced truth to be embodied. By keeping them secret, the tradition ensures that the knowledge flows in one direction only, from master to apprentice, in an unbroken chain of experiential learning. This transforms the entire shrine complex into a unique kind of forbidden site. You can visit the outer areas, you can witness the stunning, unpainted Cyprus structures, but you are seeing only the current manifestation of a timeless idea. The true core of the site, its instructional heart, remains locked away not to hide history but to keep it vitally, ceremonially alive. This challenges our entire notion of what an archaeological treasure is. At eyes, the treasure is not a gold mask or a stone tablet. It is the silent, disciplined act of rebuilding, the faithful repetition that connects the modern world directly to the divine. The room of the documents is the safeguard for that connection, a locked room ensuring that some traditions are not observed by outsiders, but are lived, generation after generation, in sacred confidence. Beneath the iconic red walls and golden domes, the ground itself holds its breath. The Moscow Kremlin is not just a palace above, but a fortress below, built upon a hidden world of medieval tunnels, forgotten vaults, and whispered legends. For centuries, rulers have used this subterranean network for escape, for storage, and for secrets. The most tantalizing of these is the lost library of Ivan the Terrible, a fabled collection of ancient Greek and Roman texts supposedly brought to Moscow by his grandmother, Sophia Paleologina. Historians debate whether this magnificent trove of knowledge ever existed, or if it was buried or destroyed in the chaos of his reign. Yet the story persists, a ghost of parchment and ink haunting the dark passages. Today, the reality of access is dictated by modern power. While visitors can tour certain restored sections that are part of the museum complex, vast expanses of this underground labyrinth remain under the absolute control of the Russian Presidential Security Service, entirely classified for reasons of state security. This creates a unique archaeological paradox. The same tunnels that may hide medieval artifacts or a lost library from the 16th century are also believed to house reinforced communications hubs, command centers, and secure pathways from the Cold War era and beyond. The past and present are physically stacked, one upon the other, in layers of secrecy. To excavate here would not simply be a matter of brushing away medieval dust. It would mean navigating through living, sensitive infrastructure of the modern state. The restriction, therefore, is total. It represents the ultimate convergence of forbidden archaeology and active political power. The Kremlin's underground is not a site frozen in time. It is a living organ of the state, where the archaeological value of a 500-year-old brick wall is weighed against the contemporary need for absolute security. This leaves us with a profound question about the nature of discovery. Can we ever truly separate the history of a place from the power that currently occupies it? In this case, the two are inseparable. The mystery of Ivan's library, if it exists, is now guarded not by a curse or a collapse, but by a security clearance. The forbidden archaeology here is a reminder that some doors are locked not because of what they hide from the past, but because of what they protect in the present. A golden screen and a veil of black cloth mark a boundary defined by devotion. Within the Prophet's mosque in Medina, the resting place of the Prophet Muhammad is a space where history is felt, not examined. The chamber is not hidden, but it is profoundly separated, its interior visible only through a decorative grille, the air thick with reverence and whispered prayer. This site presents a restriction that operates on multiple levels, creating concentric circles of access. First, the entire city of Medina is closed to those not of the Muslim faith, a rule of entry that extends beyond the mosque walls to the city itself. Then, within the mosque, even for the millions of Muslim pilgrims who journey there, direct physical entry into the tomb chamber is impossible. The barrier is not one of danger or decay, but of sacred protocol. This creates a fascinating dynamic for the concept of historical study. The archaeological impulse to map, measure, and analyze is entirely secondary here, overridden by a living tradition that prioritizes spiritual connection over physical investigation. The site is maintained and cared for with meticulous attention, but its significance is rooted in continuous worship, not in uncovering new layers of evidence. To understand this place, one must shift perspective entirely. Its value is not in what might be buried beneath the floor, but in what is built above it in the hearts of believers. For over 14 centuries, this spot has been a focal point of pilgrimage, a destination that has shaped global culture, trade routes, and empires through the movement of the faithful. The tomb itself, as an object of veneration, is part of a living lineage, a touchstone that connects the present directly to the foundational moments of a world religion. This absolute separation forces a crucial question about how we engage with the past. Can the story of a pivotal historical figure be told through the architecture of devotion built around their memory, rather than through the forensic analysis of their physical remains? In Medina, the answer is a definitive yes. The mosque, with its expanding courtyards and soaring minarets, is the true artifact, a testament to the enduring legacy of an individual whose influence is measured in faith and community. The sealed chamber is a quiet heart within that vast body, a reminder that some forms of preservation are not about protecting an object from the world, but about protecting a space for the inner world of millions. It stands as a powerful counterpoint to the excavated tomb, proving that sometimes the most profound historical impact is safeguarded not by being opened, but by being held forever in respectful and loving separation. A single painted line on a map can become a wall in the world. The United Nations buffer zone that cuts across the island of Cyprus, often called the Green Line, is not a natural feature or an ancient ruin. It is a scar of living history, a no-man's land born from the conflict of 1974 that physically divides the capital city of Nicosia. Within this silent, militarized strip, time did not just slow down, it stopped. Abandoned homes, shops, and hotels stand exactly as they were left, with furniture still in place and personal belongings gathering dust. But beneath this eerie surface landscape lies a deeper layer of secrecy, the rumored network of military storage bunkers, sealed and scattered throughout the zone. These are not ancient catacombs, but concrete capsules from the late 20th century, potentially holding everything from archived documents and communications equipment to the mundane artifacts of a conflict suddenly paused. The restriction here is uniquely modern and profoundly political. Access to the buffer zone is controlled exclusively by the United Nations peacekeeping force. To enter without a military escort is not just trespassing, it is a violation of a fragile ceasefire and an international agreement. This transforms the entire area into an accidental, open-air museum of a very recent past, where the archaeological record consists of a child's bicycle left against a wall, a calendar forever turned to July 1974, and those locked bunkers whose contents remain a matter of speculation. The forbidden nature of this site challenges our usual definitions. We are not looking for lost treasure or royal tombs, but for the material truth of a political division that still defines daily life for Cypriots. What might those bunkers reveal about the strategies and moments of that conflict? Could older artifacts, perhaps from buildings now entombed within the zone, also be stored there, creating a chaotic mix of timelines under one sealed hatch? The impossibility of answering these questions is the entire point. The Green Line is a monument to unresolved history, a place where archaeology and contemporary diplomacy are inextricably linked. To excavate here would be to intervene in a present-day political reality, making every trowel stroke a potential diplomatic incident. This site forces us to see that sometimes the most forbidden artifacts are not those from the distant past, but the still raw materials of a story that has not yet found its ending. A different kind of border is marked not by walls or wire, but by the point of an arrow. North Sentinel Island rises from the blue waters of the Bay of Bengal as a fortress of foliage and isolation. It is home to the Sentinelese people, an indigenous tribe that has lived in complete separation from the global community for an estimated 60,000 years. Their response to any outside approach is immediate, unambiguous, and forceful, a defense of their sovereignty that has been consistent across centuries. This has led the Indian government, which administers the Andaman Islands, to enact one of the most absolute protective bans on Earth. It is illegal to approach within several nautical miles of the island's shores. This law transforms North Sentinel from a mere geographic location into a profound ethical statement. The island is, in effect, a living archaeological site, a place where the daily rhythms of a Paleolithic hunter-gatherer society continue uninterrupted. From a purely academic standpoint, it represents an unparalleled window into humanity's deep past, offering insights into technology, social structure, and survival that no buried ruin ever could. Yet the restriction acknowledges a truth far greater than academic curiosity. Any attempt at closer study, any effort to land and make contact, is not an act of discovery but an act of aggression. The ban prioritizes the survival, autonomy, and health of the Sentinelese people above all else. Outsiders carry microbes to which the tribe has no immunity, meaning that even a peaceful interaction could inadvertently cause catastrophic illness. The law enforces a necessary distance, recognizing that the most respectful way to engage with this chapter of human history is to leave its authors in peace. Research, therefore, is limited to distant observation, notes on fishing techniques from passing boats, or analysis of the island's forest cover via satellite imagery. This creates a unique paradox in our quest to understand the human story. Here is a chapter written in the present tense, but we are forbidden from reading the page. We must learn its contours from the shape of the closed book. This enforced distance challenges the very premise of archaeology, which traditionally seeks to uncover and possess. At North Sentinel, the ultimate act of preservation is to refrain. The island stands as a powerful reminder that some knowledge is not ours to take, and that the right of a people to determine their own future is the most sacred boundary of all. Radiation writes its own rules of preservation, while the broader Chernobyl exclusion zone has opened for carefully managed tours. Specific buildings within that silent landscape hold a far more permanent quarantine. The basement of Pripyat Hospital, where the first responders' gear was hastily discarded, or the control rooms deep within the reactor complex itself, remain strictly, lethally off-limits. The radiation levels in these confined spaces are so intensely high that even brief exposure would pose a severe health risk. This danger has created a chilling form of modern archaeology. Within these sealed rooms, time stopped abruptly on April 26, 1986. Logbooks lie open on desks, coats hang on hooks, and everyday objects rest exactly where they were placed in the final moments before the evacuation order. The environment itself, poisoned and unstable, has become the ultimate guardian. It preserves not ancient bones or pottery, but the poignant, mundane artifacts of a technological society interrupted by catastrophe. This is a forbidden site where the barrier is invisible, silent, and utterly unforgiving. The restriction here is not about hiding history, but about confronting a difficult legacy with necessary caution. These spaces force us to expand our idea of what an archaeological record can be. It is not always about intentional burial or ceremonial deposit. Sometimes it is the accidental snapshot, the scene frozen by a disaster that also made it too dangerous to return and clean up. Researchers now use robots and remote sensors to peer into these spaces, mapping the contamination and documenting the scene without ever setting foot inside. This technological mediation adds another layer of separation, reminding us that some chapters of our recent past are so potent that we can only observe them through a lens at a safe distance. The quiet tragedy of these rooms lies in their terrifying normality. They capture the routine of a workday that turned into a historical pivot point. This form of preservation asks a haunting question about our own era. What will we leave behind that is too dangerous for future generations to approach? The Chernobyl control rooms offer a sobering answer, a testament to the fact that our most enduring and most forbidden legacies may not be carved in stone, but sealed in concrete and silence, guarded by an invisible force of our own creation. The weight of history can be felt in the very stone of a prison wall. In Cape Town, the Castle of Good Hope stands as a stark reminder of colonial power, its pentagonal form a fortress built by the Dutch East India Company in the 17th century. While much of the castle is open as a museum, its deepest foundation holds a space deliberately kept from the public eye, the lowest dungeon. This is not a chamber closed for structural danger alone, but for the heavy atmosphere it preserves. Legends speak of a spectral grey lady, a ghost said to wander the halls, but the most tangible records are those left by the countless individuals held within these walls over centuries. The castle served as a military prison, and the subterranean cells are believed to hold a silent archive, a layered palimpsest of inscriptions and markings scratched into the rock by prisoners across generations. Each mark, a name, a date, or a simple tally of days, represents a personal story of confinement from a different era. To open these deepest levels to regular foot traffic would risk damaging these fragile, poignant testimonies. The moisture from breath, the oils from hands, even the vibration of constant footsteps could slowly erase these whispers from the past. Furthermore, the decision to keep the dungeon in shadow is an acknowledgement of its solemn legacy. It is a space that speaks to hardship and isolation, and maintaining its restricted access allows for a more respectful engagement with that difficult history. Visitors to the upper levels experience the castle's military grandeur and colonial narrative, but the sealed dungeon beneath serves as a crucial counterpoint, a reminder of the human cost embedded in the foundation of such places. By protecting these inscriptions in darkness, authorities are not hiding history, but choosing to present it with a measure of solemnity, ensuring that the stories etched in stone are not trivialized by the casual gaze, but are preserved for careful, contextual study. This approach asks us to consider how we physically encounter spaces of historical hardship, and whether some narratives are better served by quiet preservation than by public display. A secret can be built upon a much older silence, beneath the modern, glass curves of the government communications headquarters building in the United Kingdom, often called the donut for its distinctive shape, lies a hidden world of concrete and shadow. This is a deep-level Cold War bunker, a relic from an era of global tension, now integrated into the heart of the nation's contemporary intelligence apparatus. Its exact layout, capabilities, and current uses are, unsurprisingly, matters of the highest state secrecy. Yet, the most intriguing aspect of this forbidden site may not be its modern purpose, but what lies beneath even that. In cities like London, with histories stretching back 2 millennia, new subterranean constructions rarely encounter virgin earth. They more often intersect with the buried foundations of the past. It is entirely plausible, even likely, that the excavation for this secure bunker cut through layers of much older history. The workers who poured its reinforced walls might have unknowingly sealed off a section of a Roman road, the cellar of a medieval merchant's house, or the remains of a Tudor workshop. The bunker itself, a monument to 20th century secrecy, would have become an accidental guardian, a concrete capstone placed over these archaeological features. This creates a uniquely stratified forbidden site, The primary barrier is the urgent, living secrecy of national security, a restriction that no civilian can challenge. But beneath that modern layer of classification lies a secondary, accidental form of preservation. The archaeology is not just off-limits, it is entombed, made inaccessible by the very infrastructure designed to protect the state. To study those potential Roman bricks or medieval floor tiles, one would first need to navigate the most sensitive security protocols on the planet, an impossible paradox. This site perfectly exemplifies how the needs of the present can physically overwrite the past, not through destruction, but through an impenetrable embrace. The story of the land becomes a palimpsest where the most recent powerful writing, the language of espionage and security, is inscribed directly over older, fainter scripts. We are left to wonder what fragments of London's ancient story are now permanently locked within a 21st century fortress, their historical secrets now doubly protected, first by time and now by the silent, watchful state. A different kind of mystery lies not in a sealed chamber, but in a series of deliberate, unanswered openings. On the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx sits in eternal vigilance, its stone gaze fixed on the eastern horizon. While tourists can walk around its massive bulk, there are points on its body that are strictly, physically off-limits. These are the enigmatic shafts and recesses, most notably a rectangular shaft on the center of its back and the area directly between its colossal paws. These are not secrets in the sense of being hidden. Their locations are well documented. The restriction is one of profound fragility. The Sphinx is a monument battling time, with its soft limestone core vulnerable to moisture, wind, and the sheer weight of millennia. The internal stability of these shafts and any potential chambers they might lead to is unknown and precarious. To send people or heavy equipment into them could trigger a collapse, not just of a hidden space, but of parts of the Sphinx itself. The ban here is an act of protection for an icon, a decision to prioritize the survival of the whole over the exploration of its parts. This has inevitably fueled intense speculation. Could the shaft on its back be a sealed entrance to a forgotten hall? Do the spaces between the paws conceal more than just empty space? Theories range from the archaeological, suggesting storage or construction access tunnels, to the symbolic, proposing connections to celestial alignments. The most famous legend speaks of a hall of records, a hidden library of ancient knowledge supposedly buried beneath the Sphinx's paws. Modern science approaches these ideas with extreme caution. Researchers now use non-invasive tools like ground-penetrating radar and microgravimetry to listen to the monument's internal structure without ever touching it. These scans have revealed anomalies, areas of differing density that suggest cavities or changes in the rock. Yet, an anomaly is not a room, and a cavity is not a library. It could be a natural fissure, an ancient quarryman's pocket, or indeed something constructed. The Egyptian authorities, responsible for one of the most recognizable monuments on Earth, face an immense responsibility. The choice to keep these features closed is a statement of patience. It acknowledges that our current methods of investigation are not yet delicate enough for the task, or that the potential reward of discovery does not outweigh the catastrophic risk of damage. This site teaches a crucial lesson about the ethics of exploration. Sometimes, the greatest respect we can show the past is to admit what we do not know, and to have the discipline to leave a question unanswered, preserving the mystery so that the monument may endure for future generations to ask it again with better eyes. The ultimate secret is one that disappears without a trace. Across the vast, rolling steppes of Mongolia, a quest has endured for over 800 years, the search for the final resting place of Genghis Khan. This is not merely a hunt for a tomb, it is a pursuit of a silence deliberately carved into history. The founder of the Mongol Empire, a figure who reshaped continents, ordered his own legacy to vanish into the landscape. According to the accounts passed down, his funeral procession was an instrument of absolute secrecy. Anyone they encountered was said to have been silenced, and after the burial, 1,000 horses were reportedly ridden back and forth over the site to flatten it, blending the grave with the endless grassland. Rivers were even diverted, legend claims, to flow over the spot, sealing it with water and time. This ancient act created the first and most effective barrier, one of complete erasure. Today, the search continues under a very modern form of restriction. The Mongolian government has designated vast swaths of the Khentai province, the Khan's birthplace and the area most steeped in tradition, as protected cultural zones. These areas are strictly off-limits to foreign archaeologists and most emphatically to treasure hunters. The prohibition is a matter of deep national pride and spiritual respect. For many Mongolians, Genghis Khan is a near-sacred ancestor, and disturbing his tomb is viewed as a profound desecration, a violation of both history and peace. This creates a fascinating standoff between technology and tradition. Satellite imagery and advanced surveying tools can scan the terrain from afar, but ground truthing, the physical investigation, is blocked by law and a powerful cultural consensus. The tomb, if it exists in a form we would recognize, is protected by a dual legacy: the ruthless secrecy of the 13th century and the respectful sovereignty of the 21st. This site asks a profound question about how we value a historical figure's final wishes. Does our relentless drive to know, to catalogue and display, override the clear intention of a culture and its most iconic leader to be left in peace? The Mongolian steppe holds its answer in the whispering grass and the guarded valleys, a reminder that some mysteries are not puzzles to be solved, but choices to be honored. The greatest tomb may be the landscape itself, and the most fitting memorial an enduring, respectful silence. The final decision is often made in a room you will never see. The White House Situation Room complex represents a different kind of forbidden archaeology altogether, one where the artifacts are not centuries old, but where the walls themselves have absorbed history in the making. This is the sanctum of executive power, a nerve center rebuilt and upgraded over decades, yet resting within the historical substructure of the most famous residence in America. While the modern high-tech command hub is active and familiar from media images, it is merely the latest layer. Beneath and around it, sealed behind vault-like doors and absolute security clearances, are the earlier versions of this crucial space. Rooms from the World War II era, when President Franklin Roosevelt monitored the progress of Allied forces, or from the tense decades of the Cold War, likely remain preserved in the building's deep architecture. They are time capsules of 20th century statecraft, their very air thick with the pressure of decisions that shaped the global order. Their forbidden status is not about antiquity or physical danger, but about the inviolable principle of confidential deliberation. Access is restricted to protect the process of governance itself, ensuring that the space where leaders grapple with crisis remains a realm of utter discretion. This transforms these rooms into a unique form of archaeological site. They preserve the material culture of critical moments, the very tables where maps were spread, the phones that carried fateful calls, the chairs occupied during hours of unprecedented stress. To walk into one of these older, sealed rooms would be to physically enter the atmosphere of a historical pivot point, to stand where a president received word of a landing or a missile crisis. Yet we cannot, and likely never will. Their power as historical artifacts is magnified by their inaccessibility. They remind us that some of the most pivotal chapters in our recent past are not recorded in public monuments, but in confidential spaces whose full story is entrusted only to the building's silent memory. This final site brings our journey full circle, from ancient tombs sealed by time to modern rooms sealed by necessity. It underscores a unifying truth that whether the barrier is made of stone, law, radiation, or secrecy, A forbidden site holds a double power: the gravity of what it contains and the profound human choice to protect it from the world. Our journey across 20 forbidden sites reveals a truth far deeper than a simple list of places you cannot go. These sealed doors and guarded perimeters act as mirrors, each one reflecting a fundamental choice about what we, as a global society, value enough to remove from view. Is it national security, as with the layered secrets beneath the Kremlin, or the accidental preservation within Area 51? Is it spiritual sanctity, embodied by the profound boundaries of Mecca and Medina? Perhaps it is pure physical safety, the driving force behind the quarantine of Snake Island or the locked tombs of the Qin Emperor. Or maybe it is the patient cause of science itself, which demands the quiet, off-limits trenches of ongoing digs and the sterile silence of seed vaults. Each restriction tells a story, and the story is always about us, our fears, our faiths, our ethics, and our enduring curiosity. These places collectively challenge a modern assumption that all knowledge should be immediately and freely accessible. They pose difficult, lingering questions. Who truly owns the past? Does a nation have the right to reclaim artifacts held abroad? Does a living culture have the authority to deny access to its sacred spaces? And when does our desire to know cross the line into disrespect or even destruction? As we have seen from the Sentinel shores to the silent chambers of Lascaux, the answer is often a matter of perspective, and sometimes the most profound respect we can offer history is the discipline to leave it alone. The greatest act of preservation might not be a brilliant excavation, but a conscious, deliberate decision to let a mystery rest. If this exploration into the world's most guarded history has captivated you, there is always more to uncover. Consider subscribing for deeper journeys into the past's greatest secrets, and let us know in the comments below, which of these 20 forbidden sites do you find the most compelling and why?